All right. This is the Artificially Intelligent podcast where a white cracker ass hunky American comedian, which is me, Nathan Timmel, living in a flyover state called Iowa, speaks with his bestest buddy, who happens to be an African American person of color musician in Philadelphia, Barrett Antar Goodwin. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I am well. We have so very much to talk about today. We have worldly events like Joe Rogan and Whoopi Goldberg, and then personal events, which, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with.
Yes, please.
All right, listeners, I will tell you what you are missing in a second. Viewers, I am about to edit a 30-second video into this conversation, so we're going to pause here.
Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit lonely and you're never coming round. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit tired of listening to the sound of my tears. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit nervous that the best of all my years have gone by. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit terrified and then I see the look in your eyes. Turn around.
And that's the edit point. What you just watched, what you just listened to, if you weren't watching it, obviously you heard the world's worst rendition of Total Eclipse of the Heart. If you're watching, you saw the video. Barrett, I sent it to you yesterday. If you're listening, I did a side-by-side. It's these women on TikTok who sang, and I use that word loosely, what you just heard. And on the split side of the screen, I inserted myself watching the women and growing more curious, and then slipping a belt around my neck, pulling it tight, and pretended to masturbate as if the horrible singing you just heard was turning me on. Posted that video on TikTok. It lasted 4 or 5 hours before it was taken down for nudity slash, let me read it. It didn't get taken down for self-harm, which I would have accepted. I knew I was pushing buttons or nudity and sexual activity. All right, I insinuated that I would be masturbating, that I was masturbating. I get it. I'm not fighting this one. I fight everything on Facebook because I've never violated community standards. But what are your thoughts, Barrett? You saw the video. Would you have imagined that it would get taken down?
Um, no, but I mean, I get why they did.
Same.
I just wonder, somebody posted a picture of Mary J. Blige from the halftime show wearing that thing she wore, and then a picture of Britney Spears dressed up like a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, and said, why is one considered offensive and the other considered wholesome? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. They're playing on the race thing. Like, why can Britney dress like this and Mary J can't, And I
Well,
was
here,
like,
let me
oh,
go one further. I saw a TikTok of a guy saying, we need some good, wholesome family music at halftime. Maybe we could get, I don't know, Carrie Underwood, and she could sing about committing a felony where she destroys her boyfriend's truck on the off chance he might. And then he named 3 or 4 country artists who sang. He named a song by Reba McEntire, and he named a song by who's the guy with the hat? All of them. Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks. I mean, he named these super, but then he described their songs that are felonies or graphically sexual, and it was funny. And so his point was, yeah, will you shut up with your complaining because your
yeah,
artists sing the same fucking shit?
right, absolutely. And so I say that to say there are a lot of things on TikTok that are sexually suggestive.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen many of them. Um, and
What
I was
TikTok was founded on. It's in my feed
right,
nonstop. Women wearing skimpy outfits and dancing and
right,
just about to show their boobs and then cut away, or
right. Or did you see the one where the woman, she like takes her hair, puts it in a ponytail, bends down between her boyfriend's legs, and he thinks he's about to get head, and she reaches up and grabs the remote from under the couch, and then sits next to him.
No, I didn't see that one,
And
but
it's like there's like a bunch of those going, and it's like right, like that stuff is equally sexually suggestive and it just, so I wonder where they draw the line. Is it the fact that you're masturbating theoretically
Yeah.
over these women without their permission? Is that the problem? Right?
I
Like, or is it like, what is the actual issue? Like, who was offended?
yeah.
Because I've seen that video, and I've seen people say horrible things about that video. They're mean and scathing
Yeah.
about their singing and stuff. So I'm like, why is it that, like,
I
these
took it in a different direction.
right,
Instead of like saying these are horrible singers, I went, ooh,
right,
oh, I'm feeling tingly in my nether
right,
regions. It's
right.
at the moment, it's still up on TikTok I mean on Instagram. It's still up on Instagram. I would have accepted, and again, I'm not disputing this. I would have accepted if they had said it depicts self-harm, because I know
Absolutely.
that's something that they are cautious about. And I'm like, okay, I can see that. I've got a belt around my neck. Like if I had stopped with a suicide, like, okay, I'm just, oh, these women are bad. And that would have been one thing. But the fact that I turned it into like, oh, not my proudest fap, that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's funny.
but
Yeah.
it's interesting on where, because I had a bit about this on not my last album, the one I forget, but it was everybody is offended by something.
Yes.
And I don't think well, there are some people. I'm not one of them that I don't go around trying to push buttons. If I push your button, it's on accident. I am just saying or doing something I would find amusing. If I stumbled across a video of someone watching these, okay, I'm going to be mean here, but these not traditionally attractive, I'll say to be politically correct, women with their, and I'll just be honest, bad voices, pretending that it turned him on, I would laugh. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not trying to, you know, oh God, trigger like Michael Hutchence was my favorite singer and you made fun of autoerotic asphyxiate, or David Carradine is law. I'm not trying to trigger anybody. I can see how people wouldn't like the video, and that's fine. And I can see how people would like the video. That's fine. I'm just not sure why TikTok needs to decide. Obviously, if I'm out there, like for the longest time, Facebook had ISIS videos on it. I think there is. I think there's a. It's the whole pornography argument. I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it.
Yes.
Well, there's a difference between actual self-harm or damaging content or hurtful content or content that is meant to, and then this one was obviously silly. It pushed the boundaries. I get that. But what are you going to do?
All right. Have you seen the thing where there's like a dude, some John Stamos looking dude, who bumps into a door, says born in
Yes,
1970,
yes, yes,
and then
yes.
goes
Oh,
on
I
air,
enjoyed the
right?
shit out of that.
That's some of the funniest shit I'd seen in a minute,
Hmm.
right? And all right, so let's hold that in your side for 1 second. I was watching Glenn Lowry and John McWhorter on YouTube, some 5-minute video, because that's about all I can stand of these videos these days. If they're more than like 7 minutes, I'm like, that's 2 pop songs. I'm good. That's too much. One
Yeah.
and a half, I'll deal with, but two, the length of 2 pop songs for their kind of not them, just any of that kind of stuff. I'm just not there for that. These things, but
That's how I
the
feel about my teenage years. I remember when I first got Spotify, I'm like, holy shit, I haven't listened to Rain and Blood in forever. I used to play that
right,
nonstop. 2 songs deep, I'm like, wow, like for a song,
yeah,
it's nostalgia. But after that, I'm like, I'm
yeah.
just not in that headspace
Hmm.
anymore.
Yeah, man, 99 Left Balloons comes on the radio. I'm a happy dude. I don't know that I want to hear the whole album.
Yep.
Maybe, but but so I'm watching these two guys. They're, for those who don't know, they're considered black conservatives. I don't know that they're conservatives as much as they're just not black people who toe the traditional woke line.
Okay, I was gonna say, are they kind of like those was it Sugar and Spice?
No, right. They're no, not even close.
Okay.
These dudes like professors and shit.
Okay, because those two are button pushers. All they do
Yeah,
is like,
yeah, no.
I love Trump, and if you don't, fuck you. I mean, they don't really say anything. They have no content.
No.
They're all attitude and
Nah, these guys are
kicking fat.
relatively these guys are relatively intelligent. I don't agree with everything they say, but doesn't mean they're wrong. Just means I don't agree with them.
Yeah.
But so they're talking about something, and he said something to the effect of, coming back to the guy bumping into the wall.
We should, if anybody hasn't seen it, let's just quick explain it to them because I know what you're talking about. I laughed my ass
It's
off.
like there's a guy who bumps into the wall. He says born in 1970, and he bumps into a wall.
It's a say he's walking through a doorway. Pretend it's Groundhog Day. He does the
Yeah.
same action 4 times in a row.
Yeah. All right. So he bumps in the wall. It says born in 1970. He doesn't care. Born in 1980, the door hits him. And he goes, "Hey!" Like he's gonna fight it or something.
Yeah.
And like then 1990, he bumps and he goes, "Ah."
He stops and rubs his shoulder like, oh, that hurt.
Right. And then he said born in 2000, and he bumps into the wall and he falls down on the ground, starts crying, pulls out his phone, and goes like this to take a selfie.
Yeah. I mean, that ending is fantastic. When he's on the ground, like in such pain, but then like, I'm in pain. You know, like that was such a killer ending.
That's so funny. But like they were talking about that, and they were talking about how to a lot of these young people, it's all performative theater. It's like performative pain and performative activism and performative trauma, right? And they're talking about it as if it is really all performative. Here's the thing. I disagree with that. I think
Funny. I was just thinking that I agree with it on a certain level.
I think that to you and I, if we did that, it's largely performative, you know? But I think to a person who's actually 22, who grew up with even the slightest bit of like, they grew up in a normal middle class household, so they had typical trauma, but like theoretically, they didn't have like crazy, you know, trauma. Maybe they did. I know crazy things happen in everybody's house, right? But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that for them, when you disagree with them or like it, when it comes to the word, like we'll use the nigger word that is so like inflammatory these days. It's so crazy because I could totally say that, right? Isn't that funny?
Please tell me about this word. I'm not familiar.
Never heard this word.
It's funny because I have something I want to say about that. Obviously, when we get to that section, go ahead.
But so one of the things I was like, well, you know, when you say that word to me as an adult who's had that word hurled at him in anger, in rage from other people, when I'm hanging out with a white dude who was born in the hood or raised, I was hanging with this Irish cat the other day. He's like Irish from Ireland, but dirt poor guy, like super, super poor, lived here most of his life. And he goes, yeah, you know, I was hanging out with my niggas and we was doing this and we was doing that. And it registered that he said it. Like it registered. And I went, oh, that's interesting. And then I said, but he really means it in the same way Cardi B means it.
Yeah.
He means dude. When she says nigga, she means man. And when she says bitches, she means woman. That's what she means. Like, she doesn't mean bitch like she's a bitch. She means my bitches. My girlfriends. That's literally what the word means when she says it. And when he said it, it had the same meaning. And I was like, right, that's not actually offensive. I could choose to be offended here because he's white. But he's a white Irish guy who's poor and he hangs out with a lot of black people. And he has a story that is very similar to black people's story in how he was raised and all the things that he went through. And I was like, yeah, I'm not mad at him. But I feel like when I mention that story to particularly white people who are under 30, they're like, oh, no, that's not okay that he said that. Oh, no, you should have said something to him. I'm like, really? And because they really do get offended. And that's what I mean. It's not all performative for them. Like when you say something to them that discounts their feelings as not being the center of the thing, it actually hurts them.
Well, is that because they've been raised without any thickening of the skin because they had helicopter and bulldozer parents that did everything for them, that did not give them challenges?
I would argue that that's what it comes from.
Or obstacles?
I couldn't prove that one way or the other, but that's my guess. I think it's that. I mean, I think it's what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with like, you know, I think we were talking about your daughter walking across a plank. like a rope ladder, like a thing
Yeah.
like that, and then they put the thing in, right? And it's like, right, like when you take, like, there's something about challenges that you voluntarily walk into and voluntarily accept. And I think things like, hey mom, I'm gonna go see my friend. Can you drive me? Oh no, Nathan, just ride your bike. It's just a block away. Ride my bike? Yeah, you'll be fine. Okay.
Well, here, let me expand on that. My wife said this morning, this very morning as we speak, she said, Hillary met her Girl Scout cookie quota, but I think we need to send her door to door just so she gets the experience of talking to strangers and overcoming the fear of ringing a doorbell and, hey, can you buy cookies? And obviously we'll be there with her. We're not going to be standing next to her, but we'll walk with her, or one of us will walk with her. We're not just going to send her out into the neighborhood, although that's what used to happen. So it's like mitigating. I'll go and walk, but I'll stay on the sidewalk. She'll have to walk up to the door, ring the doorbell, and can you want to buy some Girl Scout cookies? No. Okay. So she's going to have to face rejection. Not completely isolated, maybe next year completely isolated, maybe in 2 years, but yeah, it's Lydia said that will be good for her character, and I agreed. So we are going to have her go talk to, just knock on random doors and feel see what it feels like to have to push a product, and not everybody's going to be into it.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that I think that most parents, when they send you off the first time, they'll go with you. The second time, they'll go with you, and you won't know that they went with you.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You let her go, and then you just hide, because she's not looking around to see if you're there. She's hardly a detective at this age, I'm sure, right? You could, I don't know. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen your neighborhood, but I imagine there's some trees for you to hide behind, or cars, so you could, like...
No, not really, because this was all new construction, so
Right,
everything is...
right. You may not be able to spy on her without her knowing, but you know what I mean? Like, you just hang far enough back that she feels a sense of, like, well, they're there, but they're not there. You know what I mean?
I just had a flashback. This will make sense to nobody. But when you said hang far enough back, I said, it'll be like when I stalked Nicole Bovary in 5th grade. That was the girl I had a crush on. And I remember clearly wanting to know where she lived so I could just ride my bike front and back in front of her house, back and forth in front of her house, because that's what you do when you're in 5th grade. So, city block is a rectangle, and she was walking at one end, and I would slowly ride my bike. And then when I saw her down at the other end of the block, I'd like sort of stop and like, oh, I'm just checking my brake here. And then I'd see where, okay, she's going to, but yeah, that's my only stalking experience in life that I know of, is that when in 5th grade, I just wanted to see where she lived so I could ride my bike in front of her house. Yeah. So Nicole, if you're out there, I'm sorry. I stalked you when I was 10, 9, I don't know, 11. I don't know how old 5th grade is.
Typical patriarchal male. That should start at a young age, man.
Let's flip. I want to keep talking. Yes. Let's talk about Joe Rogan and the N-word. What I thought was hilarious about that situation was last year, 6, 7, 8 months ago, I asked you, said, hey, we should do an episode on this. And I want to ask you a question. Have you ever heard me say the N-word outside of saying like, oh, this guy was, and then using it in context? Or saying, oh, I bought Richard Pryor's album, whatever. And you said, no, I've never heard you use the word outside of any context. And you said, but I don't think it's a good idea for you to ever use it because it is so triggering, even though I get where you're coming from. If you put it on a podcast, it's going to get taken out of context. People won't listen. And sure as shit, that's what happened to Rogan is they took, all these episodes of him discussing an album or using it and he said, even when I heard it played back like that, I'm like, that's fucking horrible to hear it all added up. Even the fact that he knew the context of how he said it, he's like, yeah, it just sounds wrong. All right, I stopped doing it a few years ago, and now I'm apologizing for the time I did do it. And I find that interesting because I'm not sure how I feel about it. I mean, if someone is going to name their album with the N-word in it, or rap lyrics, if you're in your car and sing like when white dumb teenagers post videos of themselves singing along to a rap song, and then they hit that word and they sing the word and keep going, like, oh, how dare they? I'm like, it's the goddamn song. Like, where is the line? I don't know. I'm genuinely confused. I know the word contains a lot of power, but I think if anything, it's gaining in power. I don't think the power is being diminished. And I think it has to do with what you said with youth. And what I think is funny about Rogan is he said it in context. Bill Maher apologized. He used it in an actual joke, if you remember. Do you remember that? He had a Democratic senator on, or he had a politician on. And the guy said, Bill, we need you out in the field getting votes. And Bill said, field, no, I'm more of a house, and did it.
That's funny. That's fucking funny, dude.
Well, I mean, I could see how that one coming from a white guy would be.
I mean, it's still funny though.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, damn, that's funny. You're fired. You know?
Yeah. But I mean, everything blew up, and Ice Cube went on the next week and said, Bill, you don't get to do that. And he's like, yeah, I get it. I'm sorry. Whereas I think Rogan's just a bigger target right now. So the fact that someone can take that out of context, and did you see, I'll shut up in 1 second. Did you see Trevor Noah's take on it?
No, what did he say?
It was fairly interesting. He said that he said, I don't like the idea. Someone stopped him on the street and said, oh, you sure destroyed Joe Rogan. He's like, I don't like that language. I didn't destroy him. I'm a comedian. First of all, I don't take anything personally. I talk about it. And secondly, he apologized. When did we stop forgiving? Like, if you didn't know, the worst people on the planet, like Dinesh D'Souza and those douchebags, they have their own sort of right-wing bullshit. Invited him over, said, if you get canceled from Spotify, we'll give you $100 million. And he said, what world do you want to live in? A world where Joe Rogan is allowed to apologize and move forward, or one where he just takes his toys and goes to the other section with the horrible people and says, I just get to say whatever I want. Fuck all of you. And the people that don't forgive, that they push people to the place where they're like, well, if you're not going to forgive me, then fuck you. I'm just going to go over here and do what I want. And I think that's how the Democratic Party is losing people and votes, because they're creating this ever tighter purity test, that ever more challenging purity test, that if you don't fit into it, then you're not, you're not a true Democrat or a true liberal or a true progressive or whatever it is. Yeah, people don't like that.
We've become, it's like what we would call like a rhino back in the day.
Yeah.
You know
yes.
what I mean? Like, because the Republicans
were the dino.
Right, exactly. But that's what it is. You know what I mean? Like, because they were the fucking jackboot thugs running around doing all this stuff, and anybody who disagreed with them, they would fucking just literally cancel them. Yeah. And then we became like, what do you say? I've seen the enemy and he is us, he is me, whatever. It's like, that's it. Like, we have, like, the left has become the enemy. But, here's what's interesting. And this is what I don't understand when people are like jumping on the Jordan Petersons of the world. I don't think Jordan Peterson's the smartest guy in the world. I don't think he's the dumbest guy either. I think he's a perfectly appropriate philosopher for the times. Like, for what our intellect is, I think he's perfectly appropriate. Any more than him, and I think most people don't even understand what the hell he's saying. Yeah. Let alone somebody one level up above him. Like, I think a lot of people need their Stoics interpreted through Ryan Holiday, or Nietzsche interpreted through Jordan Peterson, or through somebody else, because I don't even think they'd get it in the first place.
I mean, say you get rid of Jordan Peterson, what are you left with? Ben Shapiro?
Right. But it's funny. But like, people jump on these cats, but you remember, was it 2 years ago? We were talking about the baker who didn't want to bake the or something. And we were like, whatever happened to forgiveness or this? Like, we'd started this forgiveness, not accepting apologies, cancel culture is going to become a real fucking problem. Like 2 years ago, we were talking about
did the baker apologize? He sticks his ground. I mean, they're still picking. The thing is, he's still an asshole, but so is the left, because they still keep going in and saying, bake me a cake. It's like, or you could just go somewhere else. Why do you keep
why
going there?
To force him to bake a cake, right? Why are you forcing him to do this, right? But that's what I mean. Like, but we were talking about that. We were talking about somebody. It was that, and that led to somebody who did apologize. And we're talking about forgiveness and the cost of it, and when did we become unforgivable, and all this stuff. And it's like, I was talking about Joe Rogan and the COVID thing the other day, and somebody said to me, because that's what this is actually all about. It's not really even about racism. right? It's just not. It's about the COVID thing, and then they're just trying to find anything they can do to cancel him because
Yeah.
they don't like his approach to COVID. But the
Which is funny because
reality,
if you cancel him, do you really think he's just going to disappear? He will turn up on
right,
another platform, or he'll just go back to doing it himself. He got paid $100 million because he built his own empire.
right,
If you take that 100 million away,
yeah,
he will still just be him with his own, like,
right, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like it's a funny thing because I feel like when we talk about these things, like I feel like there's a people miss the point because these things aren't as cut and dry as we like them to be. I think we want to live in a world where there's no nuance, where if
mhm.
something comes out of your mouth, we're going to interpret it as if we read it on a piece of read it somewhere, right? Because right, if Joe Rogan, if the I didn't see the thing, but if it's basically him going nigger, 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 like just little
Well,
clips of him
that's
doing
the
that,
supercut. Yeah, that's the
right?
supercut. But then if you listen to this, it's like he speaks a paragraph and they take the word out. You know,
Right,
if he says, "Oh, I really like that Richard Pryor album," this crazy, and they just like boom, take the one word out. Of course, and
right,
he said it looks horrible out of context. It looks horrible. And, like I get it. It's a horror. I cringed
right.
while watching it. He said, "I'm sorry," but
But I mean, if I put that in print, it looks terrible. If it
yeah,
says Joe Rogan, nigger, 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 that nigger's crazy, right? That looks crazy in print. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But it wasn't in print, and and at what point is it not obvious that this stuff is taken out of context? And at what point does context not matter? Right? Like, at what point does context not matter? We watch movies where we watch a person blow away 300 people to save one person that he loves, and we think that's perfectly reasonable in that context. Like, why? You know what I mean? Like, why
yeah.
is it that we are willing to accept the craziest things, but when it comes to a lot of this COVID stuff or any of these other things, I feel like what we lose out on is the fact that none of this stuff is as clear as we think it is, right? Like, it's just not, right? Like the race issue, the gender issue, the trans issue, the fucking COVID issue, right? People are mad at Eric Clapton because he's anti-vaccine, but he's anti-vaccine because he went and got a vaccine. And listen, I don't know the story. This is what I heard. He went
I
and
do
got the
know the story.
vaccine.
So go ahead, tell me what you heard, and then
I heard that he went and got the vaccine, and then after the vaccine, he was like unable to play and do all kinds of other stuff, and he had real adverse reactions to it, and that was his problem. As he said, "Listen, I had some adverse reactions to this. Maybe it's not the best thing for people in my age demographic, or something like that." I don't know the exact quote, but tell me what you heard.
everything you said, except for where he leaves out the part that he has and I don't know what it is, but either it's a degenerative disease or he was losing his ability to play in the first place. And
Mm-hmm.
now he's blaming the vaccination. Now, whether or not it sped it up or there was an actual adverse reaction, like
Mm-hmm.
it'd be like me saying, it's the thing where I have cancer and I get in a car accident and die. Which one killed me? Well, it was the car accident, but I had cancer and I was going to die the next day. And like
Right.
he's focusing on the vaccination and ignoring the fact that he was 90% of the way there anyway. And it could have just been age. It could, the disease, whatever was going on with him could have just caught up to him and it happened at the same time. It's like
Mm-hmm.
saying, oh, I wore this shirt today and the Packers won the Super Bowl. Now I have to wear this shirt every day. It could be related. It doesn't have to be, but he is absolutely focusing on it, making it related without
I
proof.
mean, but like, if it is related, or he believes it's related. Like, let's say he legitimately believes it's related.
Sure, I'm sure he does.
Is it not within his right to tell people that? And
I
if you
believe
get
it is
him,
if you are able to tell the whole story. I believe that this vaccination mixed with my disease really hurt me. When he just says the vaccination's bad, he's not telling the whole story. And that's it,
right,
it goes to what you're talking about with nuance. He
right,
is taking a totalitarian position instead of a nuanced, here's the complete picture. And that's my problem with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real thing though is this is something that Carolyn Wonderland says all the time. She's this great guitar
How
player out
fucking
of
often do they do construction by you?
probably whenever the union needs to get some money from the mob. I don't
This
know.
was like several weeks ago. Are they still doing the same goddamn thing?
Oh, let me see. Oh, no, that's just a garbage truck.
Oh, good.
Sorry for you union and mob people who got offended. Please don't cancel me.
Yeah, you're gonna need union roadies when you go on tour. So
Yeah, seriously, right? And the mob's way of canceling you with cement shoes, man. That's a terrible way to get canceled. Um, but I think the real thing is this: like with what Carolyn Wonderland says all the time, she'll do some political thing about what she thinks about stuff, and then she'll like close it off with, "But if you get your political advice from a guitar player, you're an idiot." And then she goes on with her life. And that's kind of how I feel about it, right? If I get medical advice from Eric Clapton, that's kind of my fault.
did you?
You know what I mean?
I apologize for interrupting, but did you
Mhm.
hear Rogan did a stage show recently and said that thing? He said that he said, "Look, everybody's trying to cancel me right now. If you're taking medical advice from the guy that used to try and get people to eat worms on television, you're dumb." Like he's,
Right.
I was the host of Fear Factor. You think that I am an expert? And the fucked
Right.
up thing about this is what Rogan's always done for his entire career. All he's done is had conversations with people. Some of them really crazy. Like he had a guy on that said aliens built the pyramids, and Rogan just sat there and listened and talked to him because that's what he does. He sits and listens and talks to everybody.
I mean, this is the problem: is when we decide that certain kind of speech is, again, it's new speak, right? It's just 1984. It's like somebody took 1984 and didn't look at it as a warning. They looked at it as a playbook. It's
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous, right? Like we were living in a world where you can't say this, can't say this, can't say this, can't question this, can't do this, and somehow we think that that's reasonable. And you know my theory about this. I know it's the hammer nail thing that you say all the time. I think this shit is an absolute outgrowth of white supremacy and slavery. It's an
Let me
absolute
go
outgrowth.
sideways with it before we go down that path.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said something a minute ago, 2 minutes ago, and I don't remember what it was. It involved nuance and forgiveness, but I recently posted a piece, and I will stand by this argument, where I stated that Cobra Kai is the best show on television. Do you watch it?
No.
I could not recommend it enough, and here's why. What you said made me think of the difference between Cobra Kai as a television show and reality that we all live in. Cobra Kai is cheesy. The fight sequences are silly. It's hilarious. It's like a soap opera. But the show has the most developed characters I have ever seen. Everybody is given a backstory and motivation, so that when you see a bad guy, it's not just like, that's the bad guy. They explain the thought process, the hardships, why they have that worldview. And what they do then is everything gets turned on its head all the time. They introduce this character who's a kid, and he's a good kid, and he's getting picked on, and he just wants to not get picked on. He wants to stand up for himself. And by the end of his arc, where the season ends, he's a bully. He's being an asshole. And reverse, you got a kid that's like, fuck you, fuck everybody, who by the end is, I'm questioning my anger and I think I need help. And as a viewer, you watch and you feel empathetic toward every character for the most part at any given point. The good characters put on blinders and only see the world like this, only to go, oh shit, I should have been looking like this. They expand. The bad characters, and so my point is, because you are watching a TV show and you are given all that information, you automatically understand and forgive. That guy's a dick. Oh, but I understand. Yeah, his dad. Okay. Whereas in reality, you just hear what you hear, you make a snap judgment, and you don't know anything about that person's life, backstory, or context or motivation. And so we go through life making these snap judgments on people, and we think it's okay. And yet if someone does it to us, well, you don't know where I'm coming from or what I meant. Fuck you. What's wrong with you? And that to me is the big conflict. If you want to bring it to racism, white supremacy, fine, we can talk about it. But I think it has to do with an inability to see in others what we want them to see in us. It goes all the way back to fucking Christianity, glass houses, throwing stones.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it stems from that. And I got that from a goddamn cheesy soap opera TV show,
Yeah,
which I highly recommend you watch.
I would say the one caveat I would say is when you're watching people on TV, you're able to disassociate and empathize because what they're doing isn't inconveniencing you in any way, shape, or form.
That makes sense.
Right?
Hmm.
Like, I definitely agree with what you say about people's inability to see how they are the person. Like, everybody has a backstory, and just because they think that their excuse for being late, right? Their excuse for being late is reasonable. And if you just would listen, you'd see that they shouldn't be reprimanded for being late. But then when their coworker shows up and they're inconvenienced, no excuse is good enough and they're
Yeah.
mad, right? That's pretty typical, right? And I would double down on that belief because I think that that is one of the biggest issues that we have is that our convenience and our feelings become the most important thing in the room at all times, coupled with an inability, like this fantastic desire or a habit or training or whatever, to trade what we want most for what we want now. And it's like, I feel like that and like coupled with frustration, a low frustration tolerance, right? So people have a low tolerance to be frustrated in any situation. So like the coworker shows up and the person's pissed, they're late and the person's pissed off, and it's like, right, and you listen to the story, you're like, fuck you and your goddamn story. I don't care that your kid was late for this or got sick, you had to do blah 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 blah, you were supposed to be here at such and such a time. And then when it's the other way around, they don't see that because they're being frustrated instead of just understanding. And I feel like it's a weird thing because what you want most is to resolve the situation and move on so you can get to the work that was being held up by this person being late. But what you want now is to tear them a new asshole because your feelings are hurt or because how you feel. And it's
Yeah.
like this inability to separate how we feel and what we want most now based on those feelings versus what's actually the best for the situation, which is, okay, we'll deal with this later. Let's just get to work. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
I think we haven't that, but that thing shows up in all these different areas in different ways. You know what I
I
mean?
have a story for you. Tell me
Sure.
what you think. Um, I had a gig on Saturday and I'm driving to the gig and I'm on a 2-lane highway, a speed limit 55. And I want to do 60. I always do 5 over. Not too fast. Don't want a speeding ticket. Not too slow. I want to get there. And I pull up behind a guy that's doing 55. And I'm like, all right, fine. And I just start looking for a way around him. And I jog out a little bit and then jog back and then jog out. And when finally I get my break, I pull out and start going, and the fucker speeds up. And then a car appears in the distance, and I had to slow down and fall in behind. And I'm like, you fucking dick. Like I was like not hot, but I was frustrated. Like, you fucking asshole. What is wrong with you? So maybe 5-10 minutes later, the guy turns off. And as he's turning off and I'm passing him, it's like, wow. And he just holds up a finger like, fuck you. And I'm like, I went from like, well, when he did the thing where he sped up, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? The instant I saw his finger, I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm calm. He's just an asshole. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if he thought he was getting me or if I was going to be like, fuck me, fuck. Like I was going to, but the instant I saw his middle finger, I became calm. It's like, oh, he's just an asshole. I don't know why he didn't want me to pass him or what was going through his head, but that's on him, not on me.
Mm-hmm.
And something you said made me think of that story. Like I was taking it sort of personally, like not he's attacking me. He was just pissed at whoever was trying to pass him. Like, but what are your thoughts on that? I
I
have no
mean,
idea why I brought it up, but
I think it is that. I think that like there's people like we have this propensity to take things personally.
yeah,
And like so he like and I remember the thing in the car is a real thing. Like particularly for people in our age bracket. Like I remember being a kid and driving around with my friend's brother, and it was him and his girlfriend in the front seat, and my friend and me in the back seat. We're just driving around. Some guy passes us. He gets in front of us, and at the light, his brother jumps out of the car, bang on the guy's window. The fuck are you doing passing me? The fuck do you think you are? And his girlfriend's like, no, David, come back, stop, wait, And I was like, oh boy, this is just madness. Fast forward, we must have been 14 at that time, right? Fast forward 10 years, 10, 12 years. I'm out on a date with some woman. I'm driving to the restaurant or whatever. I pick her up, driving to the restaurant, and somebody passes me. And she goes, "You gonna just let him pass you like that?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, mm. And I was like, "Hmm." And I was like, "Oh, like this is a thing."
Yeah. Are you less
Like,
of a man because you don't give a fuck that someone passed you?
I'm like, because somebody else might have an emergency and I don't.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, like literally somebody might have an emergency, right? Like when I'm driving recklessly, I'm actually late. Like if I'm late somewhere and I'm speeding, it's not personal. I'm trying to get somewhere. I'm not trying to inconvenience you. I'm trying to get somewhere. And I'll tell you
I
this.
just had a thought.
Mhm.
I actively, if someone pulls up on my bumper because I'm
Yeah,
doing 60 and they want to do 65,
right,
if we're on a 2 lane, I look ahead. If I see they've got an opportunity to pass, I actively duck to the right a little, like, hey,
right,
you can get around me because I don't care.
right,
Like I
exactly.
actively allow people to pass me. I'm like, if you want to go, because then what I do is, fuck it, I'm going to speed up and keep him in my eyesight. So if he slows down, I slow down. If the cop, like, I let people pass me.
I mean, dude, it's one of the
What an
first.
interesting reaction from that woman.
Right. It's one of the first things I noticed when I moved to Philly. And I was driving around and I put my blinkers on to merge into a lane. Like I was in the left lane merging into the right lane. And the person behind me in the right lane slowed down so that I could move in. And I was like, the fuck just happened? So that was a nice person. Found out just what people in Philly do. And I'd said it to a friend of mine. He goes, "Oh, you're down south. They're just nicer. Well, they're more polite. They're
Never
not
thought
like,
of Philly as South, but all right.
but neither did I.
Yeah.
I never thought of Philly as South, but relative to New York and Connecticut, it is. Because in New York, you put your blinker on and people move in. They speed up. And it's
Yeah.
like, dude, like, what? Are you trying to beat me to the fucking 30 minutes of traffic we're all sitting in this bumper to bumper traffic with these red lights that happen every 34 seconds? Like, what do you think's going to happen here? If I get in front of you, you're going to be what? Another 45 seconds later to be standing at this light doing nothing? Like, what the fuck? But that's a real thing. Like, this idea of taking things personally. And
Yeah.
that, again, it comes back to the bumping into the wall and getting mad at the wall and falling down and taking a selfie.
Yeah.
It's
All I
like,
could see was a finger. So I couldn't have given you the guy's age because it was like right up. But, the instant, like I said, the instant I saw it, I'm like, oh, I'm not angry anymore. He's just an asshole.
I mean, dude, I've had that happen to me where I was driving, especially in Jersey. On Route 1, I was driving somewhere and something similar to that. I tried to pass somebody, they didn't let me or whatever, just something stupid. And then I was like, whatever. And we're driving and driving and driving and driving, driving. Easily 10, 12 minutes goes by. The guy turns off and I horn beeping and fuck you, fuck you. And I was like, dude, you're still thinking about that? Like, I had literally forgotten about it 9.5 minutes ago. And I was like, dude, that's still on your mind. And then what, are you gonna go home? Some fucking guy on the highway tried to fucking pass me and motherfucker ruin my day and kick your dog around and smack your kids
Yeah.
and shit. Like, what the
When
fuck is
he
going
tells
on
this
here?
story, what is he going to say?
Right.
This fucking guy tried to pass me. Like,
Right, some fucking guy on some asshole on the thing tried to cut me off. And like this story, and I've done this before, right? I think I've told you this story about one of my exes. We're talking about she asked me for something, and I didn't feel like dealing with it. I was like, "Fuck this, whatever. Eat my, kiss my natural black ass," basically, right? Like it wasn't a big deal. It was bordering on favor, and I was kind of like, I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take care of it." But I didn't really want to, so I should have just never agreed to it, which is the dick side of me. But I'd agreed to it, and then I couldn't get it done in the time frame. And I've watched myself start to construct a story
oh, yeah, yeah.
about how
It was her
it
fault,
was
or
her
yeah.
fault and she's being insensitive because I have all these things going on and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, that's so funny. Like, I literally watched myself construct a lie a believable lie that I could then regurgitate to people. It was like a virus, right? Like there's a there's a line in a P Funk song, "Good thoughts, bad thoughts." He says, "Good thoughts feed your garden or something, and bad thoughts rot your meat." You know, but or good thoughts bring forth good fruit, basically, right?
Yeah.
And bad thoughts rot your meat. And what's interesting is like if you treat this stuff like a virus, like shitty thoughts and shitty thinking and all that stuff, and you look at the compound interest of shitty thoughts, the compound interest on shitty thoughts is bad. Like it has a bad
Yeah.
effect on your life, you know? And that kind of like watching myself construct a lie that is very believable that I myself was actually starting to believe as I was constructing it, and then I could and because the conversation in my head was almost like gossipy bullshit. Like I'll use you as an example. Wait till I fucking tell Nathan what this fucking bitch did. Fucking motherfucking bitch
Yeah.
did. And then
Because you
and I
wanted to
would
feel good.
right, and I would call people like, you know what she did? She tried to make me, and I would spin a story that would make it hurt, and you'd be like, dude, that's some fucked up stuff, because it would be fucked up in the way I would tell it to you. You'd be like, dude, she's a fucking asshole. What'd you date her for in the first place? You know what I mean? And it'd be like
And
all
then you
these
would say, big titties.
well, not in this case, but I know what you mean. I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean they weren't, they were nice. They were whatever. but, uh, but it's one of those things. And then you would tell that story to somebody, or you'd be like, "Oh, this just with my buddy the other day. Similar story happened to you, man. He was doing this, and his ex said this, and blah blah." And like this whole thing creates, and then I have this thing in my head, and it becomes the truth. And next time I talk to her, I'm actually treating it like what I was
Yeah.
thinking is the truth. And that's the real problem with, again, with the Joe Rogan, Whoopi Goldberg situations and all that stuff is like when you start addressing crazy like it's sane, that's a real problem.
Well, it is. Let's talk about Whoopi for half a second, and then we'll wrap
Yeah,
things up.
absolutely.
Bill Maher last Friday said something goddamn interesting. I'm just like, oh, yeah. Did you happen to watch him?
I did, but I'm curious about what part you found interesting.
He just said what we are all tending to forget is Black people grow up having wildly different experiences than white people. Therefore, their viewpoints are different. And when they express their viewpoint, it shouldn't be on us to automatically discount and belittle it.
He said specifically in the context of race, and
Yeah.
and here's the thing, I think that when he said that, I was like, yeah, that is. The funny thing is that is an obvious statement to black people.
Yeah. But it's
It,
not obvious to white
it's
people.
not
But
obvious to white people.
I got it because it's like something I've been hearing you say forever.
Yeah,
And so when Mar said it, I'm like, oh, he gets it. He has
yeah,
Black friends.
right. The funny thing about it is he probably has them over for dinner all the time.
Yeah. Serving him, taking the
Right,
dishes in and
exactly,
out.
exactly. It's more for dinner. Yes, that's that'd be funny. Like just a meme of like someone like I have black friends over. I have black people at my house all the time for dinner, and then they're sitting there, and either there's like a black person on the table being served as
Butler.
food,
Yeah.
or somebody being the thing, being the butler, the maid, or some shit. That's funny. Um, but I think the funny thing is this: is that what Whoopi meant is seeing this is what people don't like about it. This is the problem with this kind of again the nigger thing and all this stuff. It's like my question, but is James Baldwin's question: why the need for the nigger? Like, why the need to say nigger? And I asked one of my white friends about this, and I said, why is it that white people get so offended when you tell them they can't say one word out of every other fucking word? And he goes, well, because now you're treating them like the other. Like they're not the ones who get told what they can't do. They're the ones who tell you what you can't do. Your job is to
Hmm.
accommodate their feelings, not
Yeah.
their job to accommodate your feelings. And that's the crux of all this. And I was like, no, I don't know if that's true or not true.
That's damned fascinating.
It has a ring of truth to me
Yeah.
about it, because that's what it seems like. People seem to get outraged at this stuff. Like outraged when you tell them they can't do something. They're like, why are you so attached to being able to say this word? Like, why is it so important? You know what I mean?
Well, it could be it could be first they came for the whatever and I said nothing, because
Right.
it starts with the N word, and now we are you and I grew up saying retarded, and now that's the R word, even though if you look at a medical definition or the dictionary definition of to lessen, to reverse, it's like, okay, I get it. There's a way of saying that in an insulty slang way, but there's also a way that's technically correct. The N word, there's one way, that there's literally one way. And so now you start saying that, you know, the F word for gay slang. Okay, well, it's also a bundle of sticks or a cigarette. Like, you start taking these words that traditionally have multiple meanings and or are correct, and you just make it, you put it up with the N word and say it's an absolute. So I can see the joke is that the reason people get upset is because where does it end? Because now I saw a Sarah Silverman thing, and a buddy of mine reposted it, said, I'm no longer going to say master bedroom because blah, 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 blah. And you look at them, it's like, it has nothing to do with slavery. It has absolutely nothing to do with slavery.
Right.
Now you're just pandering to bullshit, hurt feelings. It goes back to what we said all the way in the beginning, which is someone from the 2000s that, I said master bedroom. It's like,
right. I can't go to work now.
Because it goes too far. At some point, you are censoring everyone. So why do people hold on to things and get angry? Because one, change is difficult. People don't like change. But two, fast change is even more difficult. And three, some of the change is absurd. A lot of the change becomes absurd, where you're like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the real problem is that in this country we don't have a like autocorrect is bullshit, right? Like, we don't have a thing where like we overcorrect and then scale it back. It's like we overcorrect and then it stays there.
Yeah.
And maybe it scales back a little bit, but it's like gas prices, right? It goes up $1.50, then comes down 25 cents, and we're all happy. Then goes up $1.50 and comes down 25 cents, and we're all happy. And it just keeps doing that every year. So not that it's not that.
No, I get where you're.
But
I get the hypothetical.
Right. But the funny thing is that like what Whoopi is doing is no different than what any other people do about black folks, right? Let's say the Jamaicans and the Haitians are having a fight. It's called black on black violence. That's what it's called, right? How is, like, in Whoopi's mind, one drop of black blood, like if you're using slave masters rules, one drop of black blood makes you black, right? That's it. That's the rule. That's what the rule set up by the system of this country said. One drop and you are black. That was it. Right?
Didn't work out very well for Elizabeth Warren and native blood, though. So
you're just an ass. But like, as far as Whoopi's concerned, watching a handful of German Europeans beat up a bunch of Jewish European-looking people and gypsies, like as they were called back then. I don't know what the proper.
That again, gypsies is now verboten. It's like Eskimo.
All right. So all of the people that Hitler was doing this to, if you are an American person, if you're a black American, they all look white to you. In the same way that when people say, well, blacks sold each other into slavery, it's like, no, they didn't. They're different groups of people. One group is a group who lives here and won a war and then took the conquered people and went, fuck you cats, and sold them off to somebody. It's no different than when anybody else did that, but somehow because they're all black, they're supposed to be this monolithic unit. And
you just made me think of Family Guy when he's talking about Jewish people and Arabs, and he's like, we can't tell you apart, or something. I mean, I remember the Family Guy, but that was Peter's line.
I wouldn't say that that's necessarily true, right? Like, and I'll use people like, if you know Japanese people and Chinese people and Korean people and people from Thailand and people from Singapore, whatever, you know a bunch of people from a bunch of different places, you can very easily tell one.
Oh, absolutely. I've been to a handful of those countries. Right. And you see the difference now.
Right. It's not that
10 years removed from it. I honestly, you throw a picture up and I'm going to go, but you travel the
Right.
world, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, not
Right.
all Asians look alike.
Right,
I get it.
right. Like when you hang out with African Americans and then you go meet someone from Nigeria, you're like, oh, they don't look the same,
I told you
right?
my favorite story of all time. When I was
I mean,
walking with an African American in Korea, and he passed a guy and he gave him the sup, and the guy didn't give it back, and he got
right,
angry. He's like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "Because he's actually African." You know, like
right, exactly,
in Africa they don't do that because everybody's black. They again, my joke,
right,
they'd be bobbleheads because it would just be
right.
nonstop, like everybody's black. So they, yeah. But he got so offended that he didn't get the what's up nod. I'm like,
I got into an argument with a woman at a party. I was at a party, one of these like rich liberal parties in North Jersey, like nice neighborhood, hanging out. Everybody's doing drugs. Everybody's smoking weed in their backyard. Kids running around like adults, like grown ass people, and
interesting.
in a nice upper middle class neighborhood, upper middle, lower upper. I don't know where the line is there. Nice place though, you know what I mean? People had money, good looking white folks, just law breaking left and right like it's nothing. And I was like, man, must be nice, right? And in that moment, I
They should be on
realized.
the halftime show.
But I mean, I remember, I understand why black people get so angry
Wait, what was the
because
argument you got into?
uh, the argument you gonna make me stay on track. God damn you!
Oh, you were heading down black anger,
I
and
know.
nobody
Well, no,
likes
but
that. Black anger doesn't sell.
no, but like the argument is like she's like she's trying to like extra liberalize herself to me, and she's like, my daughter dates a black guy, and I was like, cool. Is she here? Like, can I? I wasn't thinking like, can I hit it right quick? Like, but I was like, great, that's nice. She goes, yeah, they have a son and everything, and she got really mad at him. I'm like, why? She goes, they live in Spain, and he's from Senegal. She said. Well, I was thinking first of all, first he's not black. He's Senegalese.
Yeah.
Like black is pretty much means African American. It doesn't mean people. It doesn't mean brown skinned person. But I was like, okay. She goes, and she got mad at him because he didn't want to go to the Black Lives Matter rally, and I'm like, because he's not actually black, and it doesn't actually refer to him. He goes, of course he's black. And I was like, no, I'm not saying this isn't a global thing, but BLM is really, this is an American thing and an American black person. And then she goes, what about that guy there's some black guy who got killed over in Italy. I was like, that's not black and white. That was some people it was a while ago. I was like, there was some people who did something to a guy that had nothing to do with race. They just happened to be Italian, and he happened to be from some country in Africa, and it happened, but it wasn't racial. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, this guy's Senegalese. The idea of what American police are doing to black people means about as much to him as what is going on over in Senegal to me right now, which I couldn't even tell you. Not because I don't care, because it's insignificant. It doesn't filter into my world.
Well, it goes back to what you said about the office work being late. Your office is not in Senegal. You are not. It's not affecting you directly. So,
right. And it doesn't mean I don't care, but I might not be at the rallies. But her idea was because he looks black, he is black.
Walks like a duck, talks like a duck.
Right. But the reality is, and that's the only thing Whoopi was saying, is the same things that white folks say when they say black on black crime. That's all she was saying. It's like, that's almost what she said. Looks like an example of man's inhumanity to man.
Inhumanity, yeah.
Right. And she's not wrong about that. She goes, I think it's less about race and more about these people being just remarkably inhumane to other people. And I was like, well, that's a little short-sighted.
Yeah.
What she's saying is a little short-sighted. And
it's like Eric Clapton and the vaccines. It's an incomplete picture. She's not wrong, but take it to the next step where they actively said, we don't like this race of people.
Right, exactly. And they and that's the thing, is like, and I don't even think that she even meant it in any harmful way. That's the thing, is like, it's a little weird. But
and has been pointed out, and let's wrap it up. She's on a show called The View. If you can't be on a show where you're supposed to give your viewpoint, what the fuck is the point of having a talk show where you blather on incessantly if all you're going to do is give the one single appropriate viewpoint?
Right. Well, what they mean is the right view.
Yeah.
That's what they mean. And again, it comes back to this thing where like you legitimately can't say anything that goes against the collective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can't, and we're heading to a place that, man, it's gonna be no good. Like the backlash. I had a friend the other day. We can talk about this next week if you want, or week after, because we got
Get the
special
friend on here.
You know, I don't think he'll do it.
Pussy.
I'll ask him, but he thinks that all this stuff's gonna get Trump reelected.
It might. I think it is too.
Right? He said,
Democrats are getting trounced in November in the midterms. Democrats are losing fucking everything. And when it comes to 2024, anything can happen. But Democrats are absolutely losing their shit, all their power come November, because perception is everything. Reality is nothing. And even though all the jobs are back, the economy's humming along, we've got bad inflation, and that's all people like, oh, it's Biden's fault. They don't care about supply and demand. They don't care. Fuck it. Let's not even get into it. But yes, Democrats are losing again because people are fucking stupid. Not because of anything the Democrats get. Well, partially because of oh God. Like Biden puts together an infrastructure bill. It should have just been infrastructure, meat and potatoes here. Nobody can vote against this. Instead, he's like, and now in this infrastructure bill, trans rights. What? You know, like you and I are both for trans rights. Why is it in an infrastructure bill? Like it's just filled with bullshit, progressive pander to the AOC's bullshit that middle America is not interested in. And that's why Republicans voted against it, because they're assholes. Because it's funny, once it passed, now all the Republicans are, it's going to build back bridges. Well, then why did you vote no? Anyway, long fucking story. We can talk about it later. Let's talk about something fucking amazing. Yeah. Katie Henry Band, On My Way, the album, top 10 album on the Billboard charts, number 6.
Yeah, man, that's
made it to. Crazy. Is it going to go higher?
I don't know. I guess only time will tell. Let's see what goes on. But
if you have not downloaded it as a purchase yet, and you are watching or listening to this, let's try and get it higher, or at least keep it in the top 10, because a top 10 album, that looks good on a resume. So goddamn good for you. All tracks written by Katie Henry and Antar Goodwin. Yeah, so man. that is a nice calling card for you.
It's kind of crazy, dude. It's kind of crazy. And it's funny because we grew up on Billboard. You know what I mean? Like we grew up on that as like that and top 40 countdown and all that shit. You know what I mean?
Casey Kasem.
You know, right? Like, I mean, this is blues Billboard, not the Hot 100.
It doesn't matter. It's the top 10 in its category.
Right. And it's like,
if you are a yodeler and you get the top 10 of yodeling albums, it's still important to the yodeling community, because you don't need a top 10 overall album, because you're not looking to play fucking Dodger Stadium. You are looking to play blues clubs, and blues clubs will respond to that. I think it's nothing short of amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Me too, man. It was a real shock, to be honest with you. Like I was like they told us, like we got an email from the people that said, "Hey, Billboard comes out tomorrow. Looks like this is where you're going to be," and we were number 5, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And then overnight, like Eric Clapton bumped us off. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, and I was like, all right. It's cool to be bumped by Eric Clapton. Like, regardless of how I feel about it, the guy's a legend, and if that's what it takes to knock you from 5 to 6,
but if you have that picture of Eric Clapton and Katie Henry right next to each other on the charts, no, what people can't know is Eric Clapton's album's been out for 3 years and hers is new.
Right, exactly. Like we're up against like classic Muddy Waters albums that were put out 35, 40 50 years ago, whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? It's like. But it's really cool. It's cool. And it has opened up some doors.
Yeah.
You know, and we're starting to see fascinating things where we play shows and there's people there, lots of people there that we don't know in towns we've never been to. And it's like, how did you guys even know there was a show going on? Like, it's weird because, like, as a musician, I go to concerts, but I go see my friends and I go see people who are like semi-famous. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you a quick story.
Yeah, please.
My buddy managed a band from Milwaukee who was opening up for Matchbox 20. And he watched, the instant that first single exploded, he watched these clubs have nothing, go packed. And then in the middle of the tour that they were supposed to be on together, The record company just came in like one of those cranes in a vending machine, went, "Oop, Matchbox 20, you've moved on," and left the opening act, my buddy's band, behind, and just took Matchbox 20 to the next level. He said it was insane to watch. Like you just said, the reason I thought of that is you said strangers showing up. I mean, he just said, yep, one night we had 100 people, the next it was sold out, the next it was sold out, the next it was sold, and then they were gone. Then they were elevated and they were on their way.
Yeah, there's something, one of my friends, a manager, said that to me once about a band that will remain nameless, just because my friend chose not to play with them and it ended up biting him in the ass. But he was in this band, and the guy said, "Hey man, I want to make you a band member." And then my friend was like, "Nah, fuck that. You better give me my $75, son." You know what I mean? He didn't say it like that. He's a nice Jewish fellow, but
I'm a hired gun. If I'm a member of the band, I get a shitty percentage. If I'm a hired gun, you have to pay me.
You have to pay me my $75, right? And the manager friend of mine was like, that guy's an idiot. And I'm like, why? And he goes, because you can tell when a band is about to break, because you go to the show and there's 5 people. Then you go to another show, there's 7. Then you go to one and there's 10 or 12. And then you go to one and there's 15 or 20. And then you go to one and there's 25. Then when you get around 25, 30, then the next number is 50, then 75, then 125. And you're watching these numbers start to expand exponentially once you get past a certain number, or factorially. I don't know the difference. I mean, I kind of do, but I don't know which one this falls under. And that's what I'm starting to see. We're not at having hundreds of people there, but I'm starting to see oh, right, the last time we played this place, we got this many people, and now we're here and there's a third again as more people.
Yeah.
And then we're in some strange town we've never been in, and there's 50 people in the room, and the room holds 60 or something. Or no, I think we packed a place that had 70, that has a 70-person capacity in a town we've never been to, with $30 tickets. And I was like, what the fuck? Not what the
That's
fuck,
pretty insane right there. $30 tickets. That's a good night for you.
I was like, $30 tickets? Who the fuck? Not that it's not worth $30, but to me, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, yeah, something's shifting. The sands are shifting. You know what I mean?
Well, that's just awesome. The album is on my way.
Yeah, man. I'm excited.
2 singles on YouTube, on my way, and got it good.
Got me good. Yeah.
Got me good. And the videos they're good songs, and the videos are fun videos to watch.
Yeah, man.
You got a third one lining up?
Possibly. I don't want to talk about it yet because it'll be early springtime. But we'll wait because Katie's about to fly off to Germany, so we'll wait till she gets back.
Lining up for a summer tour, then when she gets back. Yeah, well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, man. So on another note, what's going on with the book?
Not a lot. Just a buddy that has ADHD that can't focus on anything said, "I finished your audiobook. My only complaint is it wasn't long enough." So I did have, this was neat. I sent you this. Maybe I can post it in this video. I got tagged in a TikTok by someone. Again, you talk about strangers, people you don't know who they are. Right. It's hey, what's that?
How cool is that?
Yeah, this nice woman is walking her kid, and she's, "I just finished a 5K, and I was listening to Nathan Timmel's We Are 100 on audiobook while I was walking." I'm like, the fuck, that's awesome. The more people that do that and say they're listening to me and reading me and it, dude, it makes me really happy. And
any thoughts about a sequel?
Zero. I have an idea for a book, but it's not a sequel. Again, if I could do a Lethal Weapon 2 where it's a continuation, sure. But I don't want to do a fucking just shitty cash in, here are the same characters, but I have no ideas. I just want you to buy it because you like the first book. I can't. But Airplane 2, that's a bad sequel.
Well, you don't want to do just a series with these 2 solving crimes.
If I think of a crime, I think what made this one so unique is the crimes were unique. Mm-hmm. What comes next? There was a break-in at the jewelry store. Who stole the diamonds? Michael and... What's her name?
You're an idiot.
I can't think. Michael and the other character are on the case. That's why I always say I can't remember shit. I know I read this book, but I can't even remember my own goddamn characters.
Oh, you're hilarious.
Susan. Yeah. Don't tell anybody, but I completely stole her name from my college roommate's girlfriend. Yeah. All right. So We Are 100 is the book. People like it. People want a sequel. No promises. I got to get off my ass and start writing something. But While I am working on writing, viewers, if you search for Nathan Timmel on TikTok, I post a stupid video every single day. It's a daily
funny stuff,
snarky.
man. It's funny stuff.
Yeah, I just post a joke a day. Some of them get shared, some of them don't. So I wish more of them got shared. All right, that's what we got for you. Next week, hopefully a guest. I put
Yes.
feelers out. They are interested. It's just a matter of working up a timeline to record. But until then, bye. I think I said until them instead of then. What are you going to do?
But that's okay.
Yeah.